When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I'll dry them all. I'm on your side. When times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I'll lay me down. When you're down and out, when you're on the street, when evening falls so hard, I'll comfort you, I'll take your part. When darkness comes and pain is all around, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Sail on, silver girl, sail on by, your time has come to shine. All your dreams are on their way. See how they shine. Oh, if you need a friend, I'm sailing right behind. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will ease your mind. Bridge Over Troubled Water was released in 1970. It was Simon and Garfunkel's final studio album and their greatest success. The title track won an unprecedented 5 Grammy Awards, while the LP of the same name won Album of the Year. Indeed, the album stayed at number 1 for 10 weeks. It remained on the chart for a total of 85 weeks. It was certified an 8 times platinum. One writer observed, when the song was first written in 1969, America was in a state. Vietnam was in motion, Richard Nixon was still president, and the country was coping with the loss of Martin Luther King Jr. and Bobby Kennedy, who were both assassinated in 1968. Bridge Over Troubled Water spoke to the turmoil of the times and indeed continues to adapt to more recent times. It was used, for example, as an uplifting anthem around the more tragic events in 2005 to help raise money for those affected by Hurricane Katrina. And in 2017, the song was remixed by British artists for the Artists for Grenfell, following the tragic fire at Grenfell Tower in London. But have you ever wondered why Simon & Garfunkel's song remained so popular? It wasn't just Paul Simon's amazing tune or Art Garfunkel's haunting voice. What you may not know is that Paul Simon was inspired by a gospel song. In an interview, he describes hearing the Southern gospel group Swan Silverstone's 1959 song, "Oh Mary, Don't You Weep." Simon apparently listened to the record, he says, over and over again in his Upper East Side apartment, thunderstruck by a line improvised by the lead singer, Claude Jeter, "I'll be your bridge over deep water if you trust in my name." Simon reflected, "I think that must have subconsciously influenced me, and I started to go to gospel chord changes." The celebrated New Orleans musician Alan Toussaint astutely observed, that song had 2 writers, Paul Simon and God. And here is the clue. Although many of Paul Simon's early songs have religious themes, I believe the reason this song in particular remains so popular is because it hits a raw nerve in us all. We can all identify with the words. We're all weary of life sooner or later. We all feel small. We all need a friend when darkness comes and pain is all around. And notice it's written in the first person. When you're weary, feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I'll dry them all. I'm on your side. I will comfort you. I'll take your part. I will ease your mind. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. So who is Paul Simon talking about? Verse 3 is a reference to his soon-to-be wife, but who was the inspiration? Who laid down his life? Jesus was and is the inspiration, the answer to our deep, deep longing which the song addresses. Jesus was the first one to say, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." This stupendous promise is found in our gospel reading from Matthew chapter 11. Now, the context comes in verses 16 to 19, which reveal differing perceptions of Jesus. And then in verses 25 to 27, we discover the preeminence of Jesus, his unique relationship with God the Father, and his authority to reveal God's purposes. Verse 25, "At that time Jesus said, 'I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this is what you were pleased to do. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and to those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him.'" This is the context for this awesome promise in verses 28 to 30. Because Jesus is God the Son, he alone can make this universal and unequivocal promise to you and me. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." So let me ask you today, do you feel weary? Do you feel burdened? I don't just mean tired. There's a difference. If you feel tired, what do? You sleep, because tiredness is a physiological condition resolved by sleep. But if you repeatedly wake up feeling tired, then perhaps it's not sleep you need. If tired is a physiological condition, weariness is spiritual. Weariness is fatigue or exhaustion, the unwillingness or inability to find the strength to cope or face reality. Now, weariness can be caused by a multitude of factors. Personally, I'm weary of our politicians prevaricating over climate change, putting their party interests above global solutions. I'm weary of the inexorable growth of Israeli state-sanctioned squatter settlements stealing more and more Palestinian land. I'm weary of Western church leaders who are in denial of the reality of apartheid, more concerned to avoid offending the Zionist lobby than heeding the cry for hope, the cry for justice from our sisters and brothers in Palestine. Whatever is causing you to feel weary or burdened today, Jesus comes and gives 3 short commands, summed up in 3 words. Come, take, learn. Come to me, take my yoke, learn from me. Let's consider them one at a time. First, Jesus says, verse 28, "Come to me. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The contrast with the message of the Pharisees could not be greater. Their message was do, a wearisome burden, demanding people follow Moses and their many, many traditions. In Matthew 23, Jesus castigates the Pharisees because, quote, "they tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them." Matthew 23:4. Theirs was a religion about what people must do. But Christianity isn't a religion. Religion means rules. Christianity isn't a religion, it's a relationship, a personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. It's not about what we must do, present tense, it's about what Jesus has done, past tense, done for us. So Jesus says, "Come to me," not go to the law. Come to me simply means trust me. Trust me. And who is this command made to? All. Whoever is weary and burdened. It's a universal command. It's an unequivocal promise. I will give you rest. Not I might or may or hope, but I will give you rest. This rest is so needed. Jesus repeats the phrase in verse 29. When you come to me, when you trust in me, quote, you will find rest for your souls. The Bible talks much about this rest. In Hebrews 4, it's linked to the idea of the Sabbath day of rest. The Sabbath day of rest was because God cares about us. He knows our need. We need a break every week. A day of rest. Rest is also spoken of in the passage about the rest God promised his people in their own land, delivered from slavery into freedom. But the passage also speaks about the future rest in heaven, where there will be no more pain, no more suffering, no more weariness or burdens. But fourthly, it speaks of today. It speaks of experiencing God's rest today. Hebrews 4 verse 10. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works. It's in the present tense. We enter God's rest as we heed Jesus' invitation. Come. So first, if you are weary and burdened today, come to Jesus. Trust in Jesus with whatever is causing your weariness, whatever is burdening you. Give it to him. Come to me, says Jesus. The second command, take my yoke. Come and take. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew 11:29-30. Warren Wiersbe observes, this is a deeper experience. When we come to Christ by faith, he gives us rest. When we take his yoke and learn, we find rest, that deeper rest of surrender and obedience. The first is peace with God, Romans 5:1. The second is peace of God, which transcends all understanding, Philippians 4:6. Now the yoke was simply a wooden collar that ran across the shoulders of a pair of oxen. It enabled them to pull the weight of the plough. So the expression, take a yoke, or take my yoke, is therefore a vivid way of describing becoming someone's disciple. In Judaism, it was applied to the law, but Jesus insists that this yoke is his. He invites the weary not to go to the law, but to come to him. When we come to Christ, when we submit to him, when we trust in him, we become yoked with him. In contrast to the law, Jesus reassures us that his yoke is easy, his burden is light. The word easy simply means well-fitting. It means the yoke that Jesus provides is designed for us. It's personalized to our lives and needs in the same way that a carpenter would shape a yoke to fit a particular animal. And the burden of doing his will, unlike that of the Pharisees, is not a heavy one, but a light one, because Jesus is, in his own words, gentle and humble in heart. It's so reassuring to realize that he knows us. He understands us. He knows what we're going through. He comes alongside us to help us. He not only welcomes a sinner who's burdened, come to me, but he wants to train that person to be his disciple in how to live. That's what take my yoke means. And the third command, it's linked to the first two. And learn from me. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. If the first command is prompted by our condition of being weary, come to me, the second, take my yoke, is intended to relieve our burdens because Jesus will carry them with us and for us. The third command, learn from me, points to the process of resolving our weariness. To take away our weariness in the future. It looks forward to our journey with Jesus. Take my yoke and learn from me. You see, they're linked. A farmer would often yoke a younger, inexperienced animal with an older, stronger, wiser animal, so the younger one would learn from the older how to plough. That's what Jesus is promising here. As we learn more of Jesus and his will for our lives, so we will find a deeper peace and security as we trust him with our burdens. Let me just close with one more reflection on that expression, the easy yoke. It's taken from Doug Webster's brilliant little book, The Easy Yoke. He says this: Jesus' easy yoke is neither cheap nor convenient. The surprising promise of the easy yoke was meant to free us from the self-serving, meritorious, performance-based religion. It is easy in that it frees us from the burden of self-centeredness. It liberates us from the load of self-righteousness. It frees us to live in the way that God intended us to. An easy yoke sounds like an oxymoron. Ploughing a field or pulling a load is hard work, and nowhere does Jesus promise soft ground or level paths. What he does promise is himself, a relationship. Apart from the grace of Christ and the saving work of the cross, it would be impossible to convince people that the easy yoke is doable, let alone easy. But for those who live under the yoke, there is absolutely no other way to live. Who in their right mind would go back to the gods of self, money, lust, and power? Who would return on bended knee to the shrines of pious performance, judgmentalism, or legalism? Is not love better than hate? Purity better than lust? Reconciliation better than retaliation? And if not better, really easier when measured in character rather than convenience. Rest for the soul rather than selfish pride. So, the next time you hear Paul Simon's song, Bridge Over Troubled Water, remember where his inspiration came from. And remember where yours lies also, in the promise and the command which Jesus gave us. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul.